Today, ladies and gents, we are talking about the Kraken.
Yes. Yes, right. So it is a very large creature that I'm sure everyone has heard of.
Yes.
So let's get right into the basics. They, in general, are not what you may think they are all the time. They can be Pirates of the Caribbean vibes, the giant octopus, but they can also be more Call of Cthulhu vibes.
Call of Cthulhu.
And anywhere in between in any other version. So let's get right into kind of what they look like in general. So let's first talk about the typical Kraken. What does the typical Kraken look like?
It's a so basically the typical Kraken throughout all the editions was a ginormous squid. Yeah. Typical Kraken.
How ginormous?
They are gargantuan, but they're even larger than normal gargantuan. They're classified as gargantuan titan, which
Right.
kind of makes them even more big, maybe pushing it to colossal size. But so the Kraken is squid formed. It is kind of colored pretty interestingly. It's like a lot of pictures show as yellow to tan. And on the end, where its flaps are, its fins, I guess, there's a blue tint at the end. It has red bulging eyes, and it has 10 arms, 2 tentacles. Tentacles are about double the length of a normal
Let me correct you
arm of
there.
a squid.
Doesn't it have 8 arms, 2 tentacles?
Should have 12.
For 10 total? It should have 12?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Arms are different from... I believe that's how squids work. I could be wrong. But basically, more arms, 8 or 10, and they'll always have 2 tentacles, double the length, and at the end, which kind of makes D&D Kraken scary, they have spikes on the ends of their tentacles, so kind of really scary. But yes, that's a typical Kraken. They also, for their mouth, they have a giant beak that have been known to split whales and ships in half. So, very scary creature.
Yeah. So in essence, the typical Kraken is a giant squid, but way, way, way bigger. And bigger is always scarier. Okay, but just to add on to the basics, we'll get more into this later, but in general, there are mutated Krakens in Dungeons & Dragons. And so this is, in my opinion, probably the Wizard of the Coast's way of accounting for different iterations of the Kraken. You know, you got the Kraken from Clash of the Titans. You got the Kraken from Pirates of the Caribbean. You do have Call of Cthulhu, which is something people like to incorporate into their...
H.P. Lovecraft.
Yeah, Lovecraft stuff. Anyway, you got a lot of different Krakens. And so one of the ways that you as a DM are able to incorporate it is Krakens can be very mutated in D&D.
They can be customizable.
Yes, and that means you can take the original squid, like Kraken that we just described, and change it in really any way that you want. And so the Monster Manual gives an example of what a Kraken might look like after mutations.
That thing looks scary.
And it's just one example. So if you're confused as why the Kraken looks nothing like a Kraken, it's because 5th edition is really pushing this idea of Krakens can be mutated. And we'll talk about more how that fits into the lore and stuff like that.
And some examples of what you might see in a mutated Kraken as well.
Right.
Yeah, so pretty interesting.
Yes, but just to round off the basics, their personality in general is they are quite intelligent beings. They're not dumb, big squids that really see life as something to be enslaved. I'll leave it at that. Actually, I'll add that they are, in general, cruel and destructive. And that's kind of what we're talking about with Krakens. They are these huge beings that destroy things. And so while they are sentient, which some people, might not have known, they're very smart, it can sometimes seem like you're encountering a hurricane as opposed to a creature when you're encountering a Kraken. Because with them comes a lot of other things, and we'll get more into what those things are.
Yeah, they're kind of basically doomsday monsters.
A
region, if there's a Kraken there, that region is probably going to get erased from the face of the earth. So.
Yeah, which fits how they are in pretty much every version. When a Kraken shows up, things are about to happen. Okay, so with that, let's jump right into what they can do in Dungeons & Dragons. What are their stats?
So, they have a very big stat sheet. But we'll just do the basics for right now. So this is a CR 23 monster. Very strong.
That's 50,000 XP if you kill one.
Yeah.
Not that you need the XP if you're at a level capable of killing a Kraken. But yeah.
Yeah. Very strong creatures. Their AC, the same as plate armor. A level of 18. Very tough.
That's natural.
That's natural armor, baby. Their HP is 472 on average, maxing at 729. So their health can be very big or moderately high. Always pretty high because, it's Kraken. But for their basic stats, they have a strength of plus 10, obvious. They have a dex of plus 0, a con of plus 7, a intelligence of a plus 6. Their wisdom is a plus 4. And their charisma is a plus 5.
So all around ridiculously high, except dex. They got a pretty average dex, but
Still,
their maximum strength plus 10, that's very high.
It's still impressive that their dex is still that way.
Yeah. Did you say their speed?
No.
No.
You can say
okay,
that.
they got a speed of 20 feet, so it's actually fairly slow.
That's on land.
But that's on land.
So these guys will come for you on land.
They have a swim speed of 60 feet. Mm-hmm. But having just a land speed at all is unexpected for a giant squid. We'll talk more about that. Okay, they have saves along with their base stats. They have a strength save of plus 17. So good luck wrestling them. They have a dexterity save of plus 7, a con save of plus 14, an intelligence save of plus 13, so again, they're smart, and a wisdom save of plus 11, smart again. They have some damage immunities. They're immune to lightning damage, bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from non-magical weapons. So they aren't easy to hit either. But of course, if you are a CR23 character, you should hopefully have some magic weapons.
Wait, so that means, if they attack a ship, cannons aren't doing anything to it.
Correct.
Literally only magic. So D&D Krakens are stupid strong compared to a lot of other Krakens in pop culture.
Yeah, I mean, ships never really had a chance against Krakens anyway. Krakens are like the anti-ships.
They are.
Yeah. Okay, they also have condition immunities, and that is to be frightened or paralyzed.
But not stunned.
Not stunned.
I love how you can stun it. A monk can walk up, punch it.
They got pressure points everywhere. They have their senses are they have true sight, up to 120 feet, so you're not sneaking up on them, and their passive perception is 14. The languages they speak are abyssal, celestial, infernal, primordial, and they also have telepathy of 120 feet, but they can't actually speak. That's what they understand. And so you may notice these are all the very old ones. So they are very ancient creatures, is what you're getting from this. Okay, do you want to say something about what they got? What kind of feats?
Like their attacks?
No, their features. Do you want me to say it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay. First feature is they are actually amphibious. So they don't just breathe water. They can also breathe air. And that will come into play later. They have a feat called Freedom of Movement. This is a fun octopi type of, their invertebrateness coming in.
Well, I think it's also just saying that they're a Kraken, so just they can move. You know what I'm saying? Like, nothing's really going to stop them from moving. They're Kraken.
Yeah, I guess. I think it does have to do with them being invertebrate, though, because octopi are very hard to pin down.
I guess that's true, but they're also, hundreds of feet long, so.
But if you had something huge pick it up, it would still be able to do this. Freedom of movement.
I guess so, yeah.
All right, anyway, but what the freedom of movement allows it to do is ignore difficult terrain. So it doesn't matter what kind of terrain it's on, it's going to be going through it normally. Magic effects cannot reduce its speed or restrain it. So this is more of a magical resistance.
Mm-hmm.
And it can spend 5 feet of movement if it wishes to escape from non-magical restraints or being grappled.
I just love how people really think a barbarian could grapple a Kraken.
Technically, a barbarian could, but they have a strength of 30, I believe, so that's going to be tough.
I just love how that's like the people making the Krakens we gotta stop that one barbarian that thinks he can just grab a tentacle and stop him.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, the last feat they have is Siege Monster. So they can double damage to objects and structures.
So basically ships.
The boat.
Yep, ships, goodbye. Yeah. I can get into their attacks. So basically, the Kraken has a multitude of attacks. They have Bite, Tentacle, Fling, and Lightning Storm. But they do get a multi-attack. They get 3 Tentacle Attacks, of each can be replaced with a Fling. So if they want to, they can do 3 Tentacle Attacks, and they can replace anyone with a Fling, basically. But, so for their first attack, if they want to use it, they can only use this once in their turn, which is their Bite. And if you think, oh, they just nibble on you, no. They get a plus 17 to hit, so basically armor is non-existent in this fight. You're basically almost going to get hit every time.
But it is the only one of their attacks that has a plus 5 range, which is really short.
Which is, super short, yeah. So, yep, plus 5 to hit for reach. Only one target, which I think is stupid. I feel like he could definitely just put a bunch of things in his mouth. But it usually does 23 or 3d8 plus 10 piercing damage from its beak or teeth. If a large or smaller is bitten by the Kraken, it is swallowed by the Kraken. The creature becomes blinded and restrained, and it has total cover against everything on the outside. So you can't have people like sniping whatever got eaten in there. I don't know.
That's more of it keeps you from getting help.
Yeah, it kind of keeps you
Nothing
from
can affect you from the outside.
Yeah, basically. And each turn you take 42 or 12d6 acid damage, basically.
Yeah, 42 on average damage per turn. So this is not a place you want to be.
Basically. If the Kraken takes 50 damage in one turn from the creature inside it, which is very hard to do, it must make a DC 25 save, or it throws up basically all swallowed creatures, and they fall within 10 feet up from it.
Yeah, let me correct you there. It doesn't have to be from the thing inside. It just has to take 50 or more damage in one turn.
That's what it says in the book, though.
I don't think it says by the thing inside it. I think if someone else did it to him, it would cause it to still make that con save.
I could have sworn it said from the inside, because I feel like that would make sense, because I don't think if you get punched, you throw up. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, that totally could happen. You punch in the stomach?
Well, yeah, but I feel like, if someone stabs a tentacle, it's not going to throw up. You know what I'm saying? I think it's from the inside.
Maybe. Okay, I guess make sure to check that.
Yeah.
All right, I'll take over here.
Okay.
Tentacle. So that was the bite attack. And if the Kraken dies, anything inside the Kraken
gets to crawl out.
Can escape. Yes. Yeah. Okay, but it has tentacle attacks and it gets 3 of these per turn. Tentacle attacks do 20 on average damage or 3d6 plus 10 bludgeoning. But what's special about the tentacle attack is when it hits, it automatically grapples the target. And it's a DC 18 check to escape. Not only does it grapple, it restrains. So that means the target cannot attack while restrained. That's the difference between grappled and restrained. If you're grappled, you can attack. If you're restrained, you can't. Okay. Do you disagree with this? What do you think the difference was between the two words?
Well, I thought you could attack with disadvantage, because then, I don't know.
Maybe when grappled.
I have no idea.
Restrained, I believe, means you're not. Another thing to check. Okay,
yep.
I'm pretty confident on that one, but you're questioning me, so check it. Okay, tentacles. It has 10 tentacles. 10. And so they can all be used if the Kraken wishes, but only 3 can attack at one time, as was said. To pair with the tentacle attack is the fling action. So what the fling action does is the Kraken can take a large or smaller than large object/creature held by the Kraken or grappled, and can throw it 60 feet in a random direction. And it is random. And then, so when the Kraken does this, the creature will fall prone, and other things will happen to the creature depending on where the creature is thrown. So there is mechanics built in on what kind of damage a flung creature takes. The mechanics are, a flung creature, if they hit a solid surface, they take 3 on average or 1d6's worth of damage for every 10 feet. So if the maximum distance the creature is thrown, which is 60 feet, is done, then they'll take 66s. And anywhere less than that can happen.
Which I think is awesome. I can finish the base attacks with Lightning Storm.
Oh, it's not over.
Oh, it's not over?
No.
I get more.
So
Scary.
there's also a mechanic of if the thrown creature gets thrown into another creature, the creature that is about to get impacted by the thrown creature can make a DC 18 dex save. And if they do that, then they can get out of the way. If they don't get out of the way, then both creatures will take that 1d6 compounding damage. So for example, if a creature is thrown 30 feet towards another creature and hits that creature, then both creatures will take 1d6 worth of, for every 10 feet they moved, which in this case is 3. So both creatures will take 3d6s worth of damage. Math. See, this is why we learn algebra in school.
D&D makes you good at math. Hopefully you're good at math.
Well, right.
Yeah. I can finish their base attacks with a very cool one, in my opinion, Lightning Storm. So in D&D, Krakens are masters of the storm and hurricanes of the oceans. So this ability, the Kraken has to see the target within 120 feet of it, and it makes 3 lightning bolt attacks. Each target must make a DC 23 dex saving throw, or take 22 or 40-10 lightning damage on a failed save, or half on a success. So this is just guaranteed damage, basically. It's kind of like, not really a breath attack, but it's a cool ability. So,
yeah, and it's 3 lightning strikes, so there's no advantage or disadvantage to using tentacles or lightning strikes. They're both just different ways of going about the combat.
So theoretically, that's 12 d10s of lightning if you hit the same target.
Yeah.
Or do they have to be separate? Yeah, no, that's a lot.
That's a lot. No, it's a lot of damage per lightning strike. It's 22 on average damage. So it's 66 damage if they do that. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's all their stuff except for their legendary actions. So, of course, a Kraken has legendary actions.
It's a legendary creature.
Yes. And so it has 3 in total that it can use. It can use 1 to do a tentacle attack or a fling attack. So that just adds there. They can use 2 of their legendary actions to do Lightning Storm. So they could be doing a lot of lightning bolts in the span of a round. And their last legendary action, which is a cool one, they spend 3 actions to do something called Ink Cloud, which has a 60-foot radius around the Kraken. Anything within the Ink Cloud has to make a DC 23 con save, and this cloud is within the water. So it mucks up the water, makes it acidic, and also you can't see through it. If the creature that makes the con save fails, they take on average 16 poison damage or 3d10s. If they succeed, though, they still take half that damage. And what this also does is it heavily obscures the water, like I said, and this can be basically turned into anything it has disadvantage on attacks while the Kraken is inside the ink cloud. So it's defensive as well. And that is all their stats.
Does
so
it say how long it lasts?
No, not that I know of, actually. It's it doesn't. I think it's 1 round because it's got a radius of 60 feet.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. That's what I thought, but I was like,
it's like a burst of ink, and then the ink disperses.
Yeah, that's still yucky.
So we'll talk about when it's used. But that's all their stats. It's quite big. This is a legendary Titan. This is quite a creature here. So now that we're through all that, we can get into how it's all used and why it is all how it is. So let's start with personality.
So personality, Krakens are not nice. They're pretty evil and cruel. They see existence as they are enslavers. That's basically what they think. They don't think they're like, I am a Kraken, I am the best form of life. They don't think in that way, but they think I am a Kraken, I'm so powerful, I can control who I want, what time I don't know. But yeah, so basically they're ginormous slavers. They think everything else is beneath them because they are a Kraken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so their personality on a very general level is evil and destructive. There is no really reason for these two things. That's just their base predisposition.
That's their nature.
It's their nature is to be evil and destroy things. They just like it. Another personality trait of them is they are very intelligent. So whatever they do it well. And what we can take from this is that they can be very individual in terms of their personality. Now, they can't speak. So when it comes to what a player, encounters and how they encounter the Kraken, they're probably all going to seem the same to a player. So when we're talking about personality, this is really more lore heavy than it is role play, because to role play a Kraken is really just to have the Kraken try to kill the players in a general level. But what you do get from intelligence in terms of role play is the Kraken is not going to be acting like some crazy beast. It's gonna, through its actions, show its intelligence. And we'll talk about what that means in combat, but otherwise, it just means that it will pause and listen if that is ever something that is in its best interest. And when it does things, its other personality traits will show through. So cruelty, for example. When it does something, it's going to do it in a very cruel way, because that's just how it likes to do things. So Krakens are bad guys.
Very
Do you have
bad.
anything to say about intelligence?
I was kind of I was going to talk about their main intelligence while in combat. But so basically these are very intelligent creatures. So they can, organize, cults. That's kind of getting into other stuff. But they can use strategy, and they normally do a lot in their goals and their motivations and their combat. So as what Jake said, do not use them as just mindless monsters that the people are fighting. Use them as they got their goals, they're going to do it cruelly, and they're going to do it efficiently.
Yeah.
Basically. Yeah. So
we'll talk more about that in the combat section, but yes, anything they do will be done very intelligently. Okay, another kind of base trait of theirs is selfishness, although this does come from their sense of self-importance and power compared to others. They just are selfish because they see themselves as they are, which are very strong compared to everything else in the world. So they tend to, it's kind of like us looking at ants. It's like ants are just ants. They're less sophisticated creatures than us. Therefore, to ants, we're going to be very selfish, because anything we do, like destroy 15 ant mounds to build our house, seems selfish, to the ants.
Yeah.
But to us, it's just how we do things.
We want our house, god dang it.
Yeah, and so I guess a Kraken is kind of like that little kid that burns ants.
I kind of feel like that would be a juvenile Kraken. It's like, oh, look, a ship, and then the older one's like, oh my god, stop wasting your time, do some other things.
That's true. Yeah, they might be too sophisticated for that. But yeah, they're hyper intelligent and hyper powerful. They are going to be selfish in our eyes, because they're not going to care at all how they affect us small mortals. Yeah,
they are also selfish amongst their survival, and they want to keep themselves alive as well. So they're in that way, they don't just go in and kill stuff. They just think to themselves I don't want to hurt myself, so they're very strategic.
That's actually a good point. They are selfish on a higher level, even more than towards humanoids. They're selfish even amongst themselves. We'll get more into that later.
Yeah.
But they are selfish. That's something to know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, another trait that they are is they're long-term focused. So they aren't just about what's good in the moment. They are very much thinking in the future.
What's going to happen in the next 1,000 years?
Yes, exactly. And so some things that kind of pair with this is that they do sleep for very long periods of time. They typically are waiting for signs from just things around them that it's time to wake up and start destroying everyone. That's kind of, we'll get into more of that later, but wreaking havoc on civilization is kind of one of the things they would love to do. And if there's ever a time to do it, they're waiting for it. They're waiting for the signs that it's time to wake up and wreak havoc on civilization, basically. They also don't die of old age.
So they're immortal unless you kill them.
Correct. So they're immortal. That also tends to make things quite long-term focused, because they got time. So it's they don't need to rush things.
Wow, so that's one of the only creatures that are immortal, though, outlive generations of elves, dragons.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So.
And Krakens don't get killed very easily.
Oh,
so they're not going to die very often.
I wonder why there's not like a bajillion of them. You know.
Well, we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
That will probably be all about social structure because there's only so many Krakens that the world can support. They are quite large. So, there's competition. But yeah, long-term focused. So they weave strategies that are they have plots that are so long that your players wouldn't even really be able to it wouldn't even matter. You know what I mean? Like they won't even see the changes that are being made from what a Kraken is doing, if that makes any sense. Like your players will be born and die in the middle of it will make no relevance. I don't know how to better explain that. Hopefully you understand what I'm saying. Hope it's not confusing. Okay. One more personality trait of theirs is they are salty. And this is because they live in the ocean, and the ocean is full of salt. No, I'm just kidding.
Stop.
No, but they are salty because they were once the rulers of the sea.
So they're pulling at Aboleth.
They're pulling an Aboleth. Yes.
Well, I mean, they were also like some more backstory. They were once like servants of the gods.
They were warriors of the gods.
They were warriors.
Such powerful warriors, in fact, that they would actually fight gods.
100%.
Yeah.
These are like like some creatures call them the old ones. Kind of like the Cthulhu vibes. Like Krakens are basically gods, as like not as strong as the gods, but they are god level.
Yeah, basically.
In strength. So they are pretty salty. That how come like all the other gods get their palaces? Well, I guess just a stupid cave and this stupid.
Yeah, because they very much understand their place and such. You know what I mean? They're not just these giant release the Kraken beasts. They are like smart, so like they know what's up. It's like, yes, release me. Hello.
Duh.
I can't speak, but I can think it.
Smack you around.
Yeah.
Wait, so I just think the Aboleths have no chance. They think they can take over the world. The Kraken's like, bruh, you're like a sardine to me.
What the Aboleths have going for them against the Krakens is their memory, because Aboleths have perfect memories from the beginning of time.
Guess that's true.
And Aboleths might outdate Krakens. Actually, they do.
Wait, what do you mean? Like they were there before?
They were there before.
That is true, yes. They were there before.
And so knowing history can be a very powerful weapon.
History is very powerful. It's a daily thing. I just feel like a Kraken pulls up to like an Aboleth. It's like, all right, little sardine, you think you have a chance? And the Aboleth is like, oh, yes, I do.
Well, the Aboleth doesn't have a chance. Krakens are bounds more powerful, not only individually, but also their culture. There is no way Aboleths are touching Krakens. Krakens are more smart than Aboleths. The only thing is Aboleths were there first. So Aboleths can look at a Kraken and say, like, I was here when your species was born. So,
insolent
boom.
child.
And then the Kraken will go, okay, I'm going to kill you now. You know what I mean? Because the Kraken the Kraken is just better.
I just imagine the Aboleth was like monologuing, saying like how dumb the Kraken is, thinking he has a chance. And then the Kraken just slaps him, kills him instantly. Just like slaps the Aboleth. And then the Aboleth just like floats like a dead fish.
Yeah, the Aboleths are probably smart enough to stay clear of Krakens. Yeah. But not always. One of the things Krakens do to hunt is they'll just get up, open their mouth, and suck in all that water, and then anything in that water will just be eaten, and they'll go back to sleep.
Wait, so they just get up in the cave, go back to sleep?
Yeah, like let's say they slumber for long periods of time. So let's say they're just sitting there at the ocean floor for like 500 years. And then there's like a large school of fish just swimming above like what seems to be just like rock and sand because it's been like that for 500 years. And then all of a sudden the ground breaks open. The Kraken gets up, opens its mouth, all the water floods in, the entire school of fish with it, and then the Kraken closes its mouth, goes back to sleep for another 500 years. That's the kind of thing Krakens will do. So although there are lots of Krakens, the reason you're not encountering them all the time is because they're pretty still. They don't do a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll talk why there isn't more Krakens in their social structure. It's pretty funny. I think it's one of the funniest things.
It is. Yeah. They have an interesting social structure. But before then, we are now going to go into their motivations.
Yeah, so Krakens, they have a lot of motivations. So the main base one that all Krakens believe in is, since they are immortal and they're all about what's in the future, they want to have a point where they want to, of course, conquer the world. They want to swallow the world for the Krakens. Basically.
And they actually have, before then, they actually have a goal before that goal. So that's like long term. And again, Krakens are thinking about the long term. But they actually have another goal that they need to reach first.
Conquer the oceans.
Yeah, they need to conquer the oceans. And this is linked to their religion. So there are legends, in the Forgotten Realms that gods created Krakens. There's legends that Aboleths created Krakens, which would be ironic. And then, but Krakens themselves believe that their origin is linked to this being called the Great Unbeheld.
Yeah, this thing is scary.
Yeah, the Great Unbeheld is the OG Kraken, according to the Krakens, in their belief system. And it's supposedly so large that if it were to rise, it would flood the entire world. And this is something the Krakens would love to have happen. Yeah. But this is where their motivation comes in. They believe that the Great Unbeheld is waiting for when the Krakens have conquered the oceans before it rises. So basically they believe the Unbeheld is like, hey, look, you need to conquer the oceans first, and then I'll flood the whole world so you can conquer everything else. So the Krakens have a great desire as a whole species to conquer the oceans so that their father will rise, or mother, and give them the rest of the world.
Well, couldn't the Unbeheld just do that if they did? So I kind of feel like the Unbeheld is like, I'm just playing.
Well, whether the Unbeheld exists or not is unknown, but the Krakens believe it.
That would be
and that's just part of their religion.
That would be an awesome campaign.
Well, it's kind of like, salvation in Christianity. Like, Jesus will come and bring everyone back to, heaven with him.
When Earth blows up.
So you could be like, well, why doesn't he just do that now, right?
Duh.
But that's just not how it works.
Yeah. Well,
it's a prophecy.
Yeah, and there's also more to like the religion. So there's the Unbeheld, but they say I forget what the god's name was. So they say Krakens come from gods. The reason why some people say this is because once upon a time there was a very mean sea god that had the shape of a kraken. It was like a giant eyeball with a fish tail. Kind of looked like an aboleth, but like it had a bunch of tentacles and stuff like that. And they say this is the father of Kraken, or like the god of Krakens who created them. And they said the gods fought them, and he fought back with his Krakens. But the good gods won the other sea gods, and they banished him away into another far realm, but what's left is a severed limb that fell into the ocean, and the other gods could not find it. So they say somewhere on the material plane is just wiggling around with the big Kraken. I forget his name. The Unbeheld.
Yeah,
it's just
I guess it's never been seen.
Yeah, apparently he's just chilling there with the limb as well, so the limb is just like shaking around somewhere.
Are you talking like Pan-Zuriel?
That
was the name of.
Yeah, I think it's some god that like got his arm chopped off. He got banished, and his arm is just chilling somewhere. And like that's the link to like him in the material plane, so you can still like affect the world.
So how does it? What motivation are you talking about?
So basically, the Unbeheld is like working for that dude or something like that, or that's another reason why they want to conquer the oceans, is to bring that god back.
Yeah, they are very motivated to just get their old gods or the Unbeheld to rise again.
Yeah, to get
they kind of like their personality traits to be salty. They're very much motivated to kind of bring back the old days because they were these very powerful beings, stuff like that.
I do want to say they don't worship the Unbeheld. They just really respect them, though. They're not really religious.
Yeah, they're not worshippers.
They're kind of like, I respect you, Unbeheld, as you could kill all of us if you wanted to, but you are the OG godfather of Krakens, so the homie Krakens. So we all respect you.
Yes. All right. Another motivation of theirs is acquiring power. So they, just as a species, they value power greatly, especially personal power. And that's probably due to kind of their history of being prized by gods in the world because of their power. So they're kind of like the kid that's been told, you're special because you're good at football, or you're special because you get good grades. So then that's what they identify as for the rest of their lives. So they're all about being powerful. And so this is where we get into kind of where D&D makes Krakens interesting. So one of the most common ways a Kraken will attempt to gain power is through mutations. So a typical Kraken move is to introduce their body to in evolution. Evolution is never on the scale of a single individual. However, mutations can kind of, in the span of an immortal being, can kind of act like a form of evolution. So they introduce their body and their quote-unquote evolution to mutations that have a chance of making them stronger. That's the whole goal. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it just makes them weirder. But the goal is to make them stronger. Or sometimes they'll do it if this mutation will serve a purpose. So technically speaking, like if a Kraken wanted to like go on land, it may try to like acquire a more like
crabby legs
or something like that. And so you can get crazy looking Krakens.
And yeah, like literally, if you want to, you can say, yeah, guys, you're fighting Cthulhu right now. And that's totally plausible.
Yeah, and you just use the Kraken stat block.
Yeah, the Kraken literally would probably, do that. And they don't mess with, like, physical things. They also, like, do stuff to their brain. So, some might have, like, mood swings, like, different person, which is scary.
Yeah,
but, so they really mess with their body. So they think they are the best. But they're not, like, dragons or, like, goblins where they're like, this form is the best. Like, right. I am perfection itself. Krakens just think they are really good because they're Krakens.
Because they are. They're more realistic because they are really good. They just recognize it. Yeah. But they're willing to improve. And actually, they're striving to improve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, there's other D&D books that have Krakens, like the Odyssey of Theros, which is, like, a Greek-themed Magic the Gathering type of...
Krakens are everywhere.
Yeah. So it's a Greek-themed, and there's a Kraken in there. I think his name is, like, Tomocrates. But it looks nothing like a normal Kraken. It's like a lobster, and it has it has a hand that is it's tentacles, and it has like a claw, it has like a mouth, has like lobster limbs.
Yeah,
so pretty cool stuff. So you can really customize Krakens, which I think
you can.
Awesome.
And if you, so I think that's because there's so many different versions of Krakens. I think it was really cool for D&D for 5th edition to kind of incorporate the mutation heavy backstory. And it's been there. It's always been there. But I think if you look at the monster manual, you can see that 5th edition has really leaned into it.
Yeah, no, 5th edition really wanted to show that they do that. All the other past editions, they're a big squid. But this one, they're like, we're going to make it like a shark thing with tentacles and teeth.
I think the big squid is obviously a really fun encounter. So, like, definitely give that to your players if you haven't before. But that's probably going to be a younger Kraken, because Krakens, as they go through their immortal life, will eventually come to the conclusion that they can make themselves better through mutations, and they will.
Personally, I love the H.P. Lovecraft vibe, because that's a very big part of H.P. Lovecraft is, like, mutations and, like, things looking squiddy look, but they're not squids, like they have like different cool stuff. But I really like how D&D, they didn't want to make just a big squid, they wanted to make something different.
They gave you options.
Yeah, they gave you options.
You can use any version of Kraken you want, and it's justified with mutations, because mutations can do anything. In a fantasy world and any type of fictional world, mutations are like your common answer for, like, wait, why is that weird? Mutations. Okay, it makes sense. Mutants. Right. Jean Grey can eradicate planets. Why? A mutation. Okay.
A Wolverine Kraken.
Yeah,
just
Wolverine's
has, like, major
immortal.
Sideburns. Like, the Kraken has, like, little, like, fins that represent his hair.
Why can Professor X take over people's minds? Mutation. Okay, that explains it.
I love that. So it's like, and that makes no sense, but...
No, I mean, I don't mind at all, but that is just kind of, mutations are the iconic way of just saying, this is now explained. You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Anyway,
mutation.
So there is one more motivation, Krakens, again, can have any motivation you want to give them because they're individuals, but they have one underlying and kind of general motivation, and that is to acquire slaves.
Oh, everything in D&D wants slaves. I don't understand.
Yeah, and you were talking about this. Yeah. But yeah, they want slaves, and they actually have a very practical reason. It's because they just want slaves to do stuff for them. It's basically their form of productivity. It's kind of like like money or stocks. It's like
Jesus.
Like they have accumulated slaves to do what they need them to do, and the more slaves they get, just like the faster they can do it. And so if they have a goal, they'll use the slaves to acquire their goals. We'll go more into it when we get to enemies and allies.
Is it okay if I talk about what it's like to be a Kraken slave a bit?
Not now.
Oh.
Enemies and allies. Definitely enemies and allies.
I guess so.
Okay. Before then, we will talk about their social structure. So we're talking Kraken to Kraken, or just a Kraken by itself. Nothing except Krakens yet.
So, yeah, Krakens actually do have a very interesting social structure. You might think, oh, they probably just chill by themselves and sit there and eat. No.
Well, wait a second. They do.
Well, yes.
If you're about to get into the mating, let's just wait a second.
I was gonna...
No, wait, what do you have? They are solitary.
Yes. No. I was going to say they are very solitary.
Okay, then explain.
Yeah, so basically, the general life of a Kraken is they want to be solitary, by the way. They don't really want to see other Krakens because they have to get a big territory. They got to get their house set up. And, Krakens don't live next to each other because Krakens, they're immortal, but they still got to eat, so...
Yeah, let me explain that just a little bit more. So, part of they're territorial, and that's because they are so large, and to maintain that body, they're always hungry, always hunting, and so it's not adaptive to have other Krakens in the same place because there's only so much food in one place. So they'll have these massive spans of territory, and they'll just, in a practical sense, need to be the only Kraken there, otherwise they won't be able to support themselves. That's one. Two, because Krakens are so selfish, every Kraken knows that the other Kraken is selfish too. So they don't trust each other. They generally just have a lack of trust for other Krakens. And so to work with another Kraken is basically you just both of them setting themselves up to be betrayed in some way because they can't live in the same area and they don't trust each other, period. So they are solitary. Do you have any more to say about solitary?
Well, I do have something to say about, the non-trusting part.
Okay.
Yeah, so you will see... what my experience was that very old Krakens will manipulate younger ones to do stuff for them that they do not want to do. They're like, I really do not want to attack that fleet of ships. Younger one, the youngling, go do that for me. You'll get a prize if you do. So they're not going to, but
yeah,
they're basically going to manipulate the younger ones to go do stuff that they don't want to do.
So there might be a little bit of a vicious cycle there, where the older one mistreats the young one, so then the young one learns to distrust other Krakens, and then that Kraken gets older, becomes the old one, and then when that old one encounters a young one, that old one kind of has a resentment and does the same thing to the young one, and the cycle continues. Yes. And just to speak about old and young, so in terms of their social structure, which is what we're on, Krakens in their immortal life never stop growing. So older ones are generally more powerful because they're bigger. But mutations can mix that up, of course. If one has been much more successful with their mutations, then they may have surpassed an older one.
They'll get a laser gun.
Yeah, but in general, older ones will have kind of a higher status. Not that there really is a hierarchy.
There is no hierarchy.
There is no hierarchy, but an older one will have more respect due to the fact that the old one can beat up the young one most of the time.
Yeah.
They don't get old and frail. They get old and big. That's it.
Powerful. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah,
so we've talked about how they're solitary. There is one situation in which they're not solitary.
It's funny.
So yeah, so this can be complicated, and I have a very structured way of explaining it.
Go ahead.
But you seem like you want to explain it.
Go ahead.
Okay, all right. So the only time that they are not solitary is when mating. And so Krakens in general have an extreme desire to mate, much more than other creatures.
Yeah, but the thing is, they don't want to, though.
Not all of them.
It's except for the females.
Yeah, so
the
males...
The ladies want to. The males are like, nah.
So this is a little confusing. So let me just make this clear. They have an extreme biological desire to mate, but because they're very intelligent, the males don't want to. They have this drive, this urge to, but in their rational mind, they hate it. So what wins is really the question. Are they able to control themselves and stop themselves from doing it? No, they're not. They will go through with mating.
Yes.
There is a little bit of exceptions there, but let me talk about real quick why males hate the mating process. It's a pretty straightforward reason. It's a very dangerous process for them. So, as we've talked about, males and females and all Krakens hate each other. Or, we didn't say hate each other. They don't trust each other. They don't like being in the same place.
But they do respect each other, but they just don't trust each other.
They don't trust each other. And so let's talk a little bit how this impacts their mating. So what their mating is basically a very long period of wrestling between Krakens. Very long. We're talking months. So a male and a female pair up, and what mating does, obviously, is the male will impregnate the female. So in that sense, for an offspring to be born, there really only needs to be a female at the end of this mating. So the male is expendable. The male can be killed. And that's exactly what the female tries to do. The female spends the whole time trying to rip apart the male.
I've heard that females will fight over the male and kill him that way, too. Like, two of them will just, they want both to be having,
That absolutely can happen. But
yeah,
I'm explaining that that's okay, because once the male impregnates, it doesn't need to live anymore. The female, you can't kill the female, otherwise no eggs are laid.
Wait, so if the female's impregnated, the female just tries to kill the male?
No, it's just, imagine two things locked up together for months, and the female doesn't like this thing. The male doesn't like this thing, but the male cannot hurt the female, because if the male hurts the female, the eggs don't get laid. It's all a waste of time. The male can totally die. You know what I'm saying? Because it doesn't matter.
Rip.
So anyway, what ends up happening a lot of times is the males will just get ripped limb from limb and get killed during the mating process. So when you're an immortal, intelligent being, you would be like, why in the world would I do that?
You're like, hell no.
But what's unfortunate is they are born with an extreme urge to do it. And so what males end up calling this mating process is the hateful compulsion.
I love the name so much.
Yes, and it's called that for obvious reasons, because it's a compulsion the males have, but they hate it, and they can't control it, but they wish they could. So, some actually try to control it. Do you want to explain how?
Yeah, so basically, this kind of ties into the other mutations part. They literally try to cut out the part of the brain that causes this sensation to go and try to mate. They still don't know where it is in their brain, so they usually mess up, and you got Krakens that are mentally unstable, which I think is awful but funny at the same time.
Yeah,
but
they're creating their own disability. But so they'll in their brain they'll be like, what's causing this, and they'll try to figure it out and cut it out. Yeah. They do another couple things. They can also try to castrate themselves, but they are squids, so they don't have like a literal piece to cut off. So the way they try to do it is with chemicals. So they try to take potions to basically make themselves incapable of reproducing, with the hope of that turning off the hateful compulsion. They'll try that. The third thing they've actually been known to do, and this just goes to show how much they hate having to reproduce, and it is they will seek undeath. And this is dumb, because they're immortal. They don't need undeath. They can fully be living and still be immortal. So for a Kraken to seek undeath, it's just all because they don't want to have to reproduce.
But wouldn't that do the same thing as the potion? Just make them sterile?
The potion, there is no way of fixing. So they can try a potion, but if they can, let's say they try 20 potions and none of them have worked, then they might be like, all right, this potion thing is not working. I need to try something else, and so they'll seek undeath. So if you are a Kraken and you figure out a way to make yourself infertile as a male, you just made bank, because you can sell that to every Kraken.
Boom.
You also just ended your species, because no male Kraken wants to reproduce.
No, but I just realized, I believe some males do get away with their lives. Not all of them get killed.
The mating process is basically a battle. They are fighting. More like the male is defending itself for the whole process. And if the male can defend itself the whole time and still reproduce, then it did it. It survived.
So basically,
but that's tough.
Males kind of have to get big. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
If you have a little male, you're dead.
Imagine fighting someone, but you can't really hurt them back. All you can do is defend. And do that for months. The odds of you surviving are low. Eventually, that person's going to get the upper hand.
I mean, I kind of feel like the months fighting thing, they just kind of sit there and just kind of
No,
scratchy.
so mating.
I mean, do they really just fight?
It's a very physical process, and it will cause, like, inadvertently, gigantic whirlpools on the surface, storms. It's like, so if you're ever going through like a crazy storm on a ship, it might be because like hundreds of feet down, there's a mating going on between two krakens.
Yeah, pretty messed up. And like even like the sailors might look down in the water, you might see like black blood, like just chunks of flesh being ripped off. But I do want to end the. Do you have any more about like their sterilization?
Not exactly. But I did want to say that I just thought of this now. It's more of an extra idea, but I think it'd be cool. So imagine. So actually, this is more lore. So they not only just pair up, they will actually have a giant get together between krakens. So there'll be like hundreds of krakens coming to the same like space. Now this is a huge area, but like, so think of the Bermuda Triangle. Think of like a place that's just full of storms and no one really knows why. In your world, that could be because that's the mating ground of krakens. That's where they all meet up. And when they mate, like I said, they create storms on the surface and whirlpools. And so that could just be a death zone for ships if there's krakens mating. Because all of a sudden there's going to be like all these, storms popping up and whirlpools. And it's like if your ship is there, it's like the odds of you not getting sunk by something. Yeah. So yeah, that's all about their mating process. So in essence, males and females fight each other for a while, and the males can sometimes survive, but most of the time will get ripped apart, and that creates males who hate reproducing. But they want it so bad in a biological sense that they need to do magical or, surgical methods to undo that compulsion.
I just think it's so funny. They're like, no. Women. Rips at their brain. Yes, the final part of the social structure is like, what do the females do afterwards? Well, when they're impregnated, they go to the deepest, darkest trenches where nothing can get to them. And they lay, I don't think hundreds, but normally a lot of eggs. A jillion eggs. And the eggs are about the size of I think it was like a man or an elephant. So, they're krakens. Huge eggs. And they're mostly pure black. And when the eggs hatch, of course, there's hundreds of them. So a lot of them do have to die by them killing each other, by them not having enough food, because krakens can starve, which I think is pretty funny. Well, not funny, but kind of cool. And predators will eat them because they're not big. They're big as elephants. So killer whales, sharks, tridents, which are a race, they'll kill krakens. So they're prey when they're young, but if they get big enough, they'll survive. So it's kind of like the long neck dinosaur, sauropod, or real life octopi strategy of reproducing. Only one of them are going to survive out of like 100.
Right.
So that's kind of like their plan.
That's a pretty general strategy.
Yeah, pretty general strategy. You're like frogs. I think tadpoles do that. So.
Yep. Yeah. Most things do, especially in the water.
Yeah.
Mammals don't. That's the exception, but most other things do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that's their social structure. The only last thing I have is, although they can't speak, they do have their own language, and that language is similar to whales. So it's a kraken language. Only krakens speak it.
Rip those whales. They're passing them by. It's like, how are you doing? And they hear something down below. They're like, oh, crap. Swim!
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Dory can speak Kraken, perhaps, from Finding Nemo.
Imagine Dory pulls up, looks at speaking Kraken. The Kraken's like, what the heck is that?
Yeah. Okay, so that's their social structure. Now let's get into their enemies and allies. Do you want to start with enemies or do you want to start with allies?
I will start with some enemies.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, Krakens, nothing really rivals them when they get big.
I disagree.
Well, some things, but not a lot of things.
Nothing one-on-one.
One-on-one.
But there are some things.
Mm-hmm, there are some things. So the one general enemy of the Kraken are tritons. Tritons?
Oh, really? I didn't know this. I have another one. So
yeah, so these are the underwater race. They're not like merfolk. They're kind of like Atlanteans, but their entire history, the Tritons they go on underwater crusades, which I think is amazing to all those Templar fans out there. They're going on underwater crusades to rid of Krakens and other evil things in the ocean floor. So I just imagine
cool.
like a Kraken just chilling in his lair, and all they hear is like, the horn just tries for the crusades.
And it just like opens an eye.
And then the Kraken's just like, God. But Tritons do kill Krakens. They are lethal because they do send like thousands armies against one Kraken. But yes, Tritons are. I just kind of envision the battle in the last battle in Aquaman. Do you remember that?
Yeah, but that was a fight. That was like a duel, wasn't it?
No, do you remember the end when Aquaman pulled up with the Kraken? So I just imagine like Atlantis. Yeah, basically Atlantis versus Krakens. So yeah, cool. Tritons are actually the reason why Krakens didn't conquer the world yet. So
interesting.
You're welcome.
So all right. So that's a cool one. There are so I have another one. So these are a couple other enemies. Are those all your enemies?
I do have one more, but please go ahead.
All right, I'll do one. So another thing that hunts Krakens are storm giants.
Really? I actually did not know that.
Yes, and this makes sense because
I love storm giants. Yes. So they pull up their like nut.
Storm giants are typically good. They live in the deep ocean. So
really? So they'll pull up to like an adult Kraken. Or like a group of them, or just one.
I would the Lord does not say. I would imagine a group. I could imagine like a party of storm giants.
That would be such a cool idea.
That could easily
storm
be
giants, and they have classes, but you're a storm giant.
Yeah, I mean, storm giants as a creature, as a race, are stronger than Krakens because they work together and they are more numerous, right? You can have an entire kingdom of storm giants, and storm giants on their own are nothing to laugh at.
That is true.
So, and they can move in the water as easily as they can move in the land.
And lightning is ineffective. Because they both are immune to it. So.
They both are immune, so it's a battle of strength there. And storm giants, they got a big sword, so they're fine.
Big sword.
So yeah, storm giants definitely hunt, and I could even see one storm giant taking on like a smaller Kraken. But yeah, so storm giants, another one which is actually no longer a creature that's like officially like maintained. It's called a marrow. It's kind of like an aquatic ogre thing. I'm actually
It's not like a messed up merfolk. Like they're in the
big. I don't know what their connection is to merfolk. How
big are they?
I don't know how big they are.
Like large?
They're kind of like an ogre but aquatic.
Oh,
it's kind of weird. I don't know much about them because they stopped. They're from 3rd edition at the latest. So I'm not that old, so obviously I didn't play 3rd edition.
I'm pretty sure they're in 5th.
No, I don't think they are.
Really?
Maybe if they are, I don't know about them. I'm pretty sure they're just 3rd. Well, anyway, but they're a weird one. So that's just something to throw in. I don't know much about them. I would forget them. But the storm giants is the big one, and I guess now the Tritons.
Yeah, I just love the idea of the Kraken thing. It's like, oh god, not another the 600th Crusade?
Yeah, I'd say the Tritons have a harder chance of.
They have a way harder chance.
But storm giants showing up. That would be scary for a Kraken, I think. Now, in a layer, Kraken is doing pretty well, but yeah. Okay, what's the other enemy you have?
I do have one more. So 2 obvious not rivals, but one are bronze dragons. They are aquatic dragons. They also shoot lightning, but a Kraken would spank a bronze dragon unless it's ancient. They're equal level, I believe. No, maybe the bronze dragon's a little weaker. But the last one, which I think is awesome, it came out in the new book. Fizban's Treasury of Dragons, Ancient Dragon Turtles. They can be the size of literal islands.
Nice.
They could be bigger than Krakens.
So it's the lion turtle from Avatar.
It's literally the Kraken versus lion turtle vibes.
Dang.
Yeah, so there's a really good picture of an ancient dragon turtle, and basically what you see is like an island with mountains, with ships, and an arm and its head popping up. And its hand is like big as the fleet.
Oh god.
Yeah, so
cool.
Yeah, and they are stronger, I believe, by 2 CR. So yeah, so that's an ancient dragon turtle is the physically largest dragon in all the Forgotten Realms, and of course, and I feel like they would fight each other pretty.
I could see an ancient dragon turtle just kind of just like coming up to eat a Kraken. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean...
It'd be a fight, but...
It would be a fight. I kind of feel like it's like the sperm whale and the giant squid. Like, it's going to be a tough fight for the dragon turtle. You know, Krakens are stupid strong as well. True. So, yeah. So, I think that's pretty cool.
That would be cool.
I love the Trident Crusade. The Crusades, go!
Yeah. Okay, allies. So, allies is a weird word. Krakens are evil, and evil things...
Don't like each other.
You know, allies is always... a hard term to pin down, but they do have things that they definitely alliance with, so I guess that means ally. Okay, so the first one is humanoids, the ones that they're breeding anyway.
Well, slaves.
So they breed slaves in their lair, not only to just tend to the Kraken and just like do things for them, but to also do services for the god you were talking about, Penzuriel. So this is like a Kraken god. Not literally a Kraken god, but a god that Krakens look up to, and probably the closest thing that they worship. So Krakens will have their slaves do things for Penzuriel and on behalf of the Kraken.
And that wiggling limb that's in the middle of nowhere, just shaking around.
Right. But also they will use their slaves to just dig for centuries. Like, have the slaves dig their whole lives, reproduce, dig, and never stop digging.
Why?
Good question. Basically, they believe that there is a buried portal somewhere below the earth, underwater, and that portal will lead to their banished god. That reminds me. So, back to enemies. They hate aquatic elves.
Yeah.
The reason they hate aquatic elves is because the aquatic elves had a hand in banishing their gods.
Yeah, like the elf god, like the Kraken god fought the elvish god of the sea.
Yeah.
So
that's why they hate aquatic elves, because the aquatic elves had a hand in that, and that's also why they have slaves digging for centuries, because they're trying to find the portal that leads to this banished god. And if this were to open, this portal, that would be bad, because I would be releasing the big Kraken bad boy. And so this is kind of your class. You could definitely use Krakens here as, like, you know, trying to awaken an old god. You know, that's kind of what they're doing. And so they'll just have slaves doing that forever. Yes. So some things about their slaves, since this seems to be the best place to talk about it, and you had some things to say too. Mm-hmm. So one thing is they can magically make pockets of breathable air, Krakens can, for their slaves to work in. So you may find yourself awoken in an underground cavern, and it happens to be at the bottom of the ocean in a space that the Krakens have magically made breathable to you.
I kind of feel like that's better than the aboliths who just slap
Absolutely better.
That just slap you and now you're a fish.
Yeah, Krakens can actually be somewhat nice to their minions. I'll get into that in a second. But one other thing they can do with their slaves is, and they do this, is they'll introduce their slaves to mutations as well. And if the mutations can help the slaves do what they need to do. So let's say they need to dig. They'll make the slaves stronger in some way so that they're able to dig longer and dig better.
They'll make their hands shovels.
Yeah, stuff like that. No, literally.
That's awful.
And you can think of, like, the Pirates of the Caribbean, like Davy Jones, the crew. Like, all of them kind of have, like, aquatic mutations. That's kind of what we're dealing with. Mm-hmm. So if you become a slave to a Kraken, you may be one of the only people there that are, like, normal. Mm-hmm. I mean, everyone else might have, like, crab hands or something.
Ew. Yeah, and generally, the life of a slave is you're generally born into the service of a Kraken. And even if, like, the Kraken dies and the party saves everyone, they're, like, so traumatized, they're just insane. So
yeah,
and really mutated, so pretty messed up.
And slaves might be the descendants of people that were taken, like, centuries ago. Yeah, I mean, they might have lived there their whole lives. You're not dealing with, like, regular people or regular slaves even. You're dealing with, like, brainwashed, breeded humanoids that were made for this purpose. Mm-hmm. So
pretty messed up.
It's pretty messed up.
Yeah, pretty messed up. I do have one more thing. How the party will probably be introduced to Krakens are Krakens. Cults form around Krakens, so people believe in Krakens as gods. They are godly creatures. So you will see cults of humanoids around coastlines devoting themselves to the Kraken for their willing service. I'm pretty sure a Kraken can even be a patron for a warlock.
Yeah.
You can have a Kraken as a patron. So pretty cool stuff there. But there's even a stat block for Kraken priests.
Yeah.
That's a whole separate thing from like a cultist. So
yeah, and I can add on to that. So,
yeah.
so yeah, you can have complete cults that are dedicated to Krakens. There's also the evil princess of the demiplane of water. Her name is Ol Hydra.
Hail Hydra.
No, Ol Hydra.
Hail Hydra.
No, it's Ol. O-L Hydra.
Ol Hydra.
Good old Hydra. Anyway.
Ol Hydra.
Yes, anyway. So she has her own cultists, and she is a real alliance with Krakens. Many Krakens will actually just alliance with her, and Krakens will use her cultists for their own, will to be pushed onto land and sea.
So wouldn't the god be like angry?
No, they're allianced.
Oh.
She's like, you can use my cultists, basically.
Oh. Okay. Cool.
And
Cool beans.
And so this is where we can get into a few ways that Krakens can kind of give some perks, actually. So you mentioned being a patron, so they can just straight up grant power. That's true. But Krakens can also, if let's say you have seafaring creatures that have, or just complete humanoids, like you might have like the pirates of blah, blah, blah. If they have alliance with the Kraken can, in return, if they do a good job on what they're supposed to do, can give them smooth sailing, can give them like large bounties of fish and stuff. Like the Kraken rules the seas, right?
So the Kraken actually rewards people instead of
Yeah.
Abyss who slap you.
And this is kind of the idea behind, again, Pirates of the Caribbean. You have Davy Jones. They were alliance with the Kraken, right? The Kraken would come if they called and fight on their behalf. Now, Krakens don't necessarily do that in D&D. They aren't quite like, I can come sink ships for you. But
what did the Kraken get in return when Davy Jones would do that? I think it's like there's food.
I
food?
forget. I mean, Davy Jones was like, they were not living creatures. I mean, Davy Jones has a heart and chest. Like, they were just kind of like they were beings of the sea. So, I don't know.
Spirits of the sea.
Yeah, so they were kind of like kin with the Kraken. But, so yeah, Krakens will alliance with Old Hydra, use her cultists. So if you have a world and you have like pirates that are doing really well, or like a certain trading company that's doing really well, it might be because they're alliance with the Kraken, and the Kraken's giving them perks. Of course, to alliance with the Kraken, while it may be in your best interest, it's never in the best interest of the world in the long term. But think about it. If the Kraken plans to like do things in the far future, and you can help it, and in return do well in your small life, like that's a good trade for a lot.
That's general humans with global warming. They're like, I'm gonna be dead when the world ends. So
yeah, so you can have a lot of like types of people alliance with the Kraken. Like you could have straight up good people alliance with the Kraken. They might be like, the Kraken helps us do what we need to do now, and we're doing a good thing.
Yeah.
But in the end, the world will pay for it, but who cares? Or they might not even be smart enough to see that. They might just say, like, look what we get. Yay. You know what I mean?
Yay. Fish.
And all I have to do is, like, take this weird ore over there. Like, that's not bad. It's like, well, you have no idea what it's for, but yeah.
Just like the part's just like, bruh. Let's kill them all.
Yeah. Okay, another thing Kraken can do with their cultists is they can take over their minds. And
yikes, they do have telepathy.
They do. And so they can't necessarily do this with just anyone, but cultists and other humanoids that have formed a connection with the Kraken, so perhaps or like the warlock, stuff like that, the Kraken can take over their mind. And this is a way for the Kraken to kind of do Abyss-style reconnaissance, where the Kraken can see what's going on land, and that helps them, achieve any goals they have. So their cultists are quite important to the Kraken. Okay. There is one other kind of section of alliances that happen with the Kraken, and this is linked to the slaves and the worshippers, and that's Koatoa and other races like them. Basically, any race that's predisposed to worshiping things will find the Kraken's a perfect thing to worship.
Oh,
yeah. And there's actually species that have like built their whole culture around Krakens. So there will be like rites of passage around the Krakens, and that's just so you can find all sorts of crazy stuff with Krakens and other races. But so the big three that we've talked about are the slaves that are literally just straight up slaves, like in the mines of the sea. You have cultists that are humanoid, human, elf, anything really, that are either all Hydra's cultists or the Krakens themselves. And then you have non-playable races like Kuatoa and stuff that worship Krakens because Krakens are very worshipful.
Well, Kuatoa worship everything. They need someone to worship.
That's why they're the big example. Yeah. But there's other races too that are similar to them.
Kuatoa could make a thing that would beat up the Kraken, but they definitely could.
They could.
Everyone underestimates the Kuatoa. Don't mess with them.
Yeah, don't underestimate what they worship. Let's say that.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's all the allies and enemies that I got.
Yeah, no, that's basically yeah, no. I'm done with you did. Yeah. Good for allies, yeah.
Okay, let's do layers then.
So,
where are the layers?
So layers they're on top of the biggest mountains under the sea. No. They're in the deepest, darkest trenches in the oceans that provide
most of the time. Other places they can be are
if you tell me like jungles, I'm gonna be like, bro.
Well, so let's remember they can actually breathe air.
Oh god.
So, and don't forget about mutations. They could do anything. So you can also find them none of it is common. Like it's gonna be hard to find a Kraken. Unless you really pay attention to like the weather or something, maybe you'll find them. But they can also be found in like lakeside ruins and caverns. So you could go to a lake that has like a big ruins on top of it, and it's like in the middle of the swamp, and under that could technically be a Kraken.
Really?
So if you're not by the ocean, don't think you're safe. But most of the time, they're going to be in the deep ocean.
Well, what's the Kraken going to eat if he's in the swamp? Some gators?
There's
some frog legs?
There's living things in the...
Some trees?
I mean, it could be basically like hibernating. But yes, it could eat any creature that's in the swamp.
I wonder what would happen if, like...
Lakes can be huge, though. Think about like the Great Lakes and stuff.
That's true. I wonder what would happen if, like, the Tarrasque pulled up to, like, to a Kraken's lair.
Yeah, maybe we can talk about that
in
the next episode.
Yeah,
because that's going to be the Tarrasque.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've gotten quite high in the CR. But okay, so that's where they are generally. Anything else to say about layers?
Layers, well, as I say again, they are in the deepest, darkest trenches. They love underwater caves to set up their lairs and their state of work, I guess, for their slaves. Places where their slaves can dig, and places where they can do their experiments on themselves and on their slaves. So they want to be private. They don't want to be messed with, really. And that's generally much with their layers. I can talk about, like, some signs that you're near a Kraken from, like, layer stuff, the magics.
Yeah. So I have their like regional effects, and also their layer actions. I'll say, but I'll say that till the end. Do you have their regional effects?
Yeah. So basically, the regional effects is the first one is they basically all the time have the control weather spell on.
Yeah.
So they can choose the weather
within 6 miles of their lair.
Within 6 miles of everything is within 6 miles of their lair. Another thing is they have water elementals going around slapping enemies that the Krakens don't like. But the thing is, they're different from normal water elementals. They can't go on land, and they're stupid. Way stupider than normal water elementals.
They have a low charisma.
Yeah, very low charisma. I thought it was intelligence, too. Is it just charisma?
I think it's just charisma.
Oh, I guess they're not charismatic. They're mean. They're
mean.
And then the last thing is all sea life within 6 miles of the lair is very dangerous, very aggressive towards... want to be enemies.
Sea life with an intelligence of 2 or lower.
Yeah.
Is automatically charmed by the Kraken and hostile towards intruders.
So sharks, fish, squids.
So if you notice like a dolphin, well actually dolphins are smart, so not a dolphin. If you notice like something that's normally not very hostile just is super aggressive.
A seahorse that starts nibbling on you, you're like, what the heck is that? And then you see a bunch of them like slowly coming again. Yeah, they are the slowest animals on the planet, by the way. Fun fact, seahorses are.
And males are actually females. Males are the ones impregnated. Yeah. Okay, you can't not speak. This is a podcast. Your facial expressions are irrelevant to a podcast.
But how does that work? So like the male gives the female the goods, and then the female puts the fetus into the male.
No. What defines a male and a female is not whether they're impregnated, it's their chromosomes. So males have humans have an X chromosome and a Y chromosome if they're a male. Females have two X's, right? Biology. But seahorses, the male has two X's. They may not be called X's. They could be other letters. But they have two of the same, and females have one of each. That's just what defines it.
Well, but don't the males also
like
give birth too, technically?
Yes. Well, what do you mean?
Like, don't the males like
seahorses?
Yeah, seahorses like make the babies.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying the males get impregnated.
But the morality.
The morality? What are you
I don't know. It's not.
It's not how humans do it. Correct. Okay.
How 99% of things do it.
I mean, yes, but who's to say why the chromosomes have to be one way? Who cares? All right. Anyway, layer actions. So this will be the last thing we get into with layers, right before we get into combat strategies. So their layer actions are they can create a strong current that pushes things away up to 60 feet, and if something is caught in this current, it makes a DC 23 strength check. So it's a very strong current. If they fail the save, they get pushed 60 feet. No damage or anything. If they make the save, then they only get pushed back 10 feet, but they do still get pushed back. So this is, not the most powerful, but it could be good in some situations. The second layer action they have is they can make creatures within 60 feet of them have vulnerability to lightning damage, and that just means those creatures will take double damage if hit with lightning.
That is strong.
That is strong. The third layer action they have is they can electrically charge the water. And so all the water within a 120-foot radius from the Kraken becomes electrified. Anything within that water has to make a DC 23 con save, so very high, or take 10 or 3d6s worth of lightning damage, which isn't anything crazy, but they do take half on success, so they're always going to take damage from this.
Wait, so theoretically, they can make anything that's immune to lightning not immune anymore, right?
Yes, that is true.
So rip the storm giants.
Yes, but let me just say something about the layer actions. So the second one is they can make things vulnerable to lightning damage. The third one is they can electrify the water. Because these are both layer actions, they cannot do both at the same time, so that'll never happen. So be aware of that. But what they can do is pair vulnerability with their storm. But that's getting into combat strategies. So unless you got anything left for layers, why don't we get into it?
Yeah, no. We can get into combat strategies.
All right. So before we get into... So again, Krakens are legendary creatures, right? They got lots of abilities. There's a lot to talk about here. So let's be very structured. So before we do anything... Let's talk about what affects the fight before the fight, if that makes sense.
They're cowards. That's one.
Okay. Let's say that seems like an after fight thing.
Well, when I say cowards, is like they're not
charging into battle.
They're not charging into battle.
Okay. Yeah.
So they're gonna think a bit before they attack. They strategize.
Yeah. So that's the first thing. They have high intelligence. So when you're using a Kraken as the DM. Use all the information you have as DM, 1, and 2, be as strategic as you possibly can. Because the Kraken is smarter than you, DM, I'm afraid. So you're going to have to use all your brains. You're going to have to use all your brain cells for this.
I don't think most DMs can do that.
Yeah. But what you do have going for you as the DM is you know everything. You know the weaknesses of the players. You know the weaknesses of the world that you've made. Like, you know what the ship's weaknesses are because you created that ship. So use all this knowledge with the Kraken because the Kraken is hyper intelligent. So the Kraken knows. When the Kraken looks at a player, it knows everything. It knows that ring is a ring of this. That, this race has a tendency to do this, blah, 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 blah. It knows all of it. So use that. That's one. The second thing is it does believe water is ideal to fight in. Obviously. So what do you think the first thing it's going to attack is?
The ship.
the ship, assuming the fight is in the water, which it typically will be.
Just imagine it's just like in the forest, just like, is that a Kraken? Just the Kraken just slowly coming up. I'm coming for you.
That actually was an extra idea of mine.
Have a land Kraken battle?
Yeah. So instead of Krakens will do this. Instead of having the generic Kraken fights on the ship, although that's an awesome battle, so do have that at some point. But you can also have Krakens just attack like a coastal town. Like imagine you're in the town, you're buying stuff from the store, and all of a sudden the roof comes off and there's a Kraken.
The Clash of the Titans Kraken comes in.
Basically.
Yeah.
Yes. But they can also go on land. They're slower, but they can do it. And Krakens don't need to move too much, right? They grab you and they don't let go.
Yeah, they have 30 feet.
20.
Reach? I thought it was 30.
Oh, of reach? Yes, sorry. 20 feet of movement. Okay, so they're high intelligent. They want to be in the water. So the first thing they're going to do as a siege monster is attack the boat, which they'll be able to kill pretty quickly. However, since we are talking combat strategies, as an intelligent being, I personally think one of the smartest things it could do, if it does want to kind of stay out of harm's way, is snipe the boat constantly with its lightning storm from 60 feet below the boat. So imagine like trying to hit it. It's 60 feet under the boat directly. And so it's just going to be calling lightning storm. So if you're the players, you're just sitting there and all of a sudden, bam, lightning strikes the boat. And you're like, oh my God, what the heck? Bam, another one. What the? And it just doesn't stop.
Well, that's actually kind of how Krakens generally get rid of ships. So they just chill there underneath the water, and ships just get like the winds push them into like a cove, and then you just get sniped.
Well, let's be specific actually. So what you're talking about is layers. So let's pretend that Kraken is not in its lair to start, because most of the time you actually won't fight a Kraken in its lair, and if you do fight one in its lair, yikes! Like you're really asking for it. Yeah. So let's pretend they're not in the lair. So if they're not in the lair, they can't control the weather, right? That's a lair action. So the only way to snipe with lightning or do anything like weathery is to use its lightning storm ability. Okay, so that's something I think they would do. So let's get into what they would do when they start fighting. So maybe you, as the DM, you do have them just attack the ship without lightning. Maybe you want to just be more classic. Or let's say your PCs are now adrift on like multiple things. What is the Kraken going to be doing once it comes like melee? What's its melee strategy? Let's talk about that.
Okay. Well, I kind of had a thing. Couldn't like if it wants the water battle, couldn't it just grab a player and chuck them into the water? Just to get rid of someone. Just like, okay, mage, buddy, old chap, come here. Just yeet through that guy. Mm-hmm. You know. So I kind of feel like that's a strategy they could be doing.
Yeah, so you're talking about fling, and they'll definitely use fling. So before we get to fling, let me say that they do favor their tentacles
a lot.
So like there is their lightning attacks, their bite attacks. They favor their tentacles. They want to use their tentacles.
Slap.
Yes, and one of the reasons is not only is it pretty efficient, they have a lot of them, but they also, when it comes to bite, they actually want to keep their body under the water for safety reasons. So they'll just kind of put their tentacles over the boat, as everyone has probably seen, and use those to fight. And the body will be safely under the water. So what do they do with those tentacles? Well,
they abuse you.
Yes.
They slap you around like your mother and father did. Maybe your girlfriend, too.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So if that actually happened to you,
sorry. I just imagine like the tippy tip of like the tentacle goes and just like the little tip but it's like the size of your head. So I feel like it just knock your.
Yeah, they just slap you. But yeah, okay. So with their tentacle, there's two things they can do. They can just do straight up damage to you, right? They can do a tentacle attack. But with their attacks, they're going to be grappling you, like automatically. So what they're going to be doing a lot is flinging. So fling, there's one thing you can consider here, and this is because Krakens are hyper intelligent. Is in the stat block, fling is random. Players get flung a random direction. That might be straight up, might be straight down, it might be straight to the side in any direction. So it's random. But as the DM, you could consider overruling that and saying that the Kraken will just throw things the direction it wants, right? So if you don't overrule it, then fling is just fling, right? They just use it. But if you do choose to overrule it, I wanted to give some things to consider about what they would do.
Just abuse one guy, pick him up, chuck him on the ground, pick him up.
Well, a Kraken could do that with random if they just continually pick them up. But
that guy.
But so what? Well, with fling is 60 feet. So technically, a character could get flung out of the range of the Kraken, especially if it's random. You know what I mean? So if you'd make it not random, the Kraken probably wouldn't do that. They probably wouldn't throw things out of their reach. They would probably try to target other creatures to get that double damage. And they would be aiming for certain things. They would be aiming for anything that deals extra damage. Like if there's like a fire, like they would try to throw it into the fire. They would also try to throw it into the water because it obviously rules the water.
Drown the guy. Just take him, plunge him in the water, and drown him.
Drown him, that could work. Now, as the DM, you know that players can go minutes without, like you can hold your breath for minutes. So
take him
that's a long time in a
eat
battle.
And just grab, eat.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So this is where we get into whether they would use the eating or not. So if a player is likely to escape from the Kraken's grappling, then the Kraken will swallow the creature instead, because especially if it's a player or a character that is threatening. So typically it will try to kind of neutralize the threats by eating them.
I wonder how the Kraken does that though. Like, does he like split the ship in half and just things fall in his mouth, or does he like move his head and
How does it eat?
Yeah, like usually they chill. Their body chills underwater.
What they do?
How's it go? Is it just go pop up and snack and then?
Remember, they can only swallow things if the creature is grappled. So what they do is they go up, they attack with their tentacles, grapple it, and then bring the thing down to their mouth and eat it.
That's so cool. I love that so much.
Yeah, it's awesome. Okay, so they use Tentacle Attacks pretty much as their general attack all the time. They will fling things at random, but if you overrule it, they're going to be aiming for other creatures or trying to get things in the water. And they'll use Bite on anything that is especially good at getting out of their grapple. And especially things that are threatening and they just want to neutralize. So now we come to Lightning Storm. Lightning Storm is used on squishy characters, typically. So the Kraken is cruel. That's something to remember. And so if a Kraken can kill something quickly, it will, because it wants all the other beings to see that thing die. So it'll target its kind of, unmissable attacks, the lightning strikes.
Wizards.
Yeah,
they
on the
get
squishy
bullied.
character. Yes. And so that's what it will do with Lightning Strike. And you can do Lightning Strike kind of however you want. As the DM, I would mix it up. I would do like a Lightning Strike as a legendary action, and then use the actual action to do some tentacles, and then do some tentacles, and then do some lightning. And so I would, don't just do one over and over again. You could, but don't do it, right? It just doesn't make it as fun. There is something to do with the Lightning Storm, though, is they'll focus on the squishy characters, like I said, but they will switch to focusing on the threatening characters if the fight isn't going very well. So if the Kraken will be all cruel and stuff in the beginning and play with the players, but then if the fight's the players are showing themselves as possibly going to win, the Kraken will take them more seriously and be like, oh, I need to start using my Lightning Storm on the people that are hurting me. You know what I mean? So if you have the wizard in the back casting major fireballs and the barbarian can't seem to hit anything, then it's going to be all right, forget the barbarian. I'm going straight for that powerful wizard, something like that. Or this rogue just keeps getting me. I need to get this rogue. You know what I mean? Yeah,
just get instant damage,
Yeah.
Unless the rogue has uncanny dodge.
Which it will.
Which I just love, something takes 80 feet.
The rogue is what the Kraken will be swallowing, if it can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Because the rogue cannot do 50 damage in its stomach.
No. That's not a sneak attack.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so there's no way. Yeah. Okay, so that's kind of the strategy.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely have more to say, but do you anything you want to add? I've been talking a little bit.
Well, no, I don't really have like their strategy. I did want to say like, are you gonna talk about the end of the fight soon, or are you gonna do that? Or?
Yes. So I guess one more thing before that, before the end.
Okay.
So while they're doing all of this, you can actually, as the DM, consider having the Kraken doing unconscious damage instead of trying to kill. And this is because of what we were talking about. They love to take slaves. It's one of their base goals. So if you as a DM want the Kraken to have the goal of taking your players as slaves, have them do unconscious damage instead of killing damage, which means you're going to do way less lightning strikes, and you're going to really focus on just tentacle attacks, just beating them unconscious.
Pick them up, throw them. Pick them up, throw them.
Yeah, and if there is someone that the Kraken's like, all right, this person's really annoying, and I'm just going to kill them and take the rest as slaves.
Just eat them.
Just eat them, or you can target with lightning on that person.
Yeah, the eating is actually really bad for anyone that gets eaten.
Yeah, it's a lot of damage.
Because you have to do 50 damage inside of it. So if you grab the measly, that makes sense.
Maybe.
You're not gonna punch the Kraken's face, and that makes no sense. Because that means it's gonna be always puking. You know what I'm saying?
That's how it works with the purple worm.
But
you just gotta do the damage.
But it's a worm.
What's the difference?
The Kraken or just a worm.
I think the Kraken would be more likely to puke.
Really? You think someone stabbing, with a rapier is gonna make him puke?
Well, I think it's just the shock of having 50 damage done to you.
I'm pretty sure it's in the inside, but we don't know. It could be on the outside.
Maybe not.
I just think it makes sense. It said inside.
What player is going to do 50 damage? What, doesn't it make sense?
I feel like the only player that could do it is a really high level fighter or any melee person with a stupid strong magic weapon or a wizard that just shoots literally everything
They
at
just
them.
explode.
Time stop, 6 fireballs.
Right.
Yeah, just gonna.
Okay.
That's the only way. And the thing is, the Kraken only has to make a 11 on his check. So if he gets higher than an 11,
he's fine.
Yeah, he's fine.
Yeah. He did just take 50 damage, so that's a lot. But
that is a lot.
Okay. So we've reached the end of the fight. So let's say the players are. So if the players are losing, the Kraken's just gonna either kill them or take them as slaves. Period. If they are winning, though, so the Kraken's gonna die, or is just not doing well. What's Kraken gonna do?
So basically, as I say again, they are cowards. They're never gonna fight to the death. Doesn't matter if they're in their lair, if they're just attacking the ship on land, they're gonna flee. They're gonna skedaddle. They're gonna run for their lives, swim for their lives, basically. So they will do everything in their power to flee. So I believe the fleeing point is when they have 100 hit points left.
Yeah, they're actually
100 or 120.
They're gonna flee sooner than other monsters. They don't really have any reason to stay.
Yeah, they're like, all right, these guys are tough than a normal fishing vessel, so I'm gonna head out. See you guys later.
Yeah, they're not gonna risk their immortal life for fun. They probably weren't attacking for any vital reason. I mean, they're not trying to defend their young. They don't probably need much from the players. They're probably just attacking because you happen to come across them, and they're cruel beings.
Mm-hmm. So
they're gonna leave.
Yeah, so they'll flee. This is kind of cool strategy that they do. So when they flee, let's say that people are like, "Whew, we survived the Kraken. Let's go to the dock and resupply, do repairs." While the adventurers are away, the Kraken will come back, wreck the ship. They'll just come back to the dock, destroy the ship with their siege monsterness, and they seek revenge. They are vengeful, so they will come back and eliminate the threat from coming up again. So they'll destroy the ships in the area, so the adventurers couldn't come back.
Yeah.
And it's basically a death wish if you go into the Kraken's lair. But if you do get a Kraken really low in its lair, it's going to leave its lair and everything in its lair. It's going to, they are immortal, so they want to live. So always free.
Yeah, and if you beat it outside its lair, it's going to go to its lair. That's where it's going to go to hide. All right, so let's talk about the lair. So there are a few things that change or just should be said about if it's in the lair. First off, I mentioned that a Kraken will kind of play with the party at first, be cruel. If a party shows up in its lair, it will take them seriously out of the gate. because it'll be like, oh wow, you're brave enough to come fight me here. I can tell you're not messing around. I'm gonna make sure
I'm gonna mess you up.
Yeah, I'm gonna make sure I fight you. Like they don't want to risk anything. Okay, so if a ship goes through their lair, like you were saying in the beginning, the Kraken will first just use their crazy ability to control the weather to just basically sink the ship from like miles away. Like they'll just try to beat the ship down with waves and wind and rocks, anything near, whirlpools. They'll do everything.
But what happens when the Kraken's shown in the lair and hears the horn with the Trident Crusade? What does he do then?
Good question. So the the Kraken will have minions. So this could be hungry sharks. This could be other types of sea people with their own tritons.
Merfolks, yeah.
Yeah. And if you're a ship, these could be sharks waiting in the water, and then sea people like climbing up the side of the ship.
What are those evil sea people called?
Crude tritons.
The Sargulin?
I don't know.
Sargulin?
There's lots of different ones.
They're like evil angler fish dudes.
Yeah, but definitely have minions if they're in the lair. Then lots of them. Next thing is when it comes to their lair actions, they're going to basically always use their third one. Because when you have a lair action, you always have the lair action going, right? So they're just going to repeatedly use their third lair action because that electrifies the water. They're not going to use their first one because it's a current of water. That's useless most of the time.
Unless they're escaping, they're like push, flee.
Yes, right.
So I kind of feel like that's the only point of it.
Yeah, they'd use that one. The second, or the other layer action, the second one where they make them vulnerable, or they make enemies vulnerable. They'll use that maybe if they're about to really heavily use their lightning storm, but other than that, they're gonna use the other one.
That's strong though. That's 120 something, 30 something damage.
Oh yeah.
So
it doubles their damage.
Doubles the damage, and it's guaranteed. So that's a big ow to the players.
It is.
Big boo boo.
So yeah, finding them in their lair is big time. All right, so the last thing is that we haven't mentioned is their ink cloud, and they probably so the ink cloud will be used defensively always, and so this is if they're getting surrounded, if they're low on HP, and especially if they're about to retreat. In their lair though, they're especially going to use it when they retreat. Because if they're getting killed in their lair, like they are at the point where they're like I'm going to die. You know what I mean? Like this was kind of where I'm supposed to win. Do I run? Because if you run, you still can get killed. Or do I stay and try to fight? It's a tough situation. But they're going to be using ink a lot when they're in their lair and getting beat. But yeah, so that's all their stuff. Quite a lot there. Combat strategies.
But they are very strong in their lair.
They're very strong. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're talking about if they're getting beat, but in their lair, like
they should be spanking you.
They should be winning.
Yeah, no. It's probably one of the hardest layers because you have to think about all the adventurers have to be equipped for underwater combat.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, hopefully, your whole party is actually a Trident Crusade. That's so much like Crusade, and they all just get probably wiped away. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to fun facts.
Yeah, 90% of mine were already said, so kind of sad. But I do have my only one that we didn't say.
Okay.
Fish. So these Krakens, I guess we did sort of say it, but they were inspired a lot with H.P. Lovecraft. Generally, Krakens are a Norse monster, Norse mythology, in which that kind of surprises most people. They're like, aren't they like Greek? That's not true. They're not in Greece mythology. That's the Typhon. I think that's its name. Typhon. So the Krakens are Norse mythology, and that's where they come from.
I can add to that real quick.
Yeah.
So the OG like Kraken story, like the first one, was an account written in 1180 by Norway. So there you go. And it was of a giant squid, just a regular squid. And so it's really cool because this creature that we're talking about right now was actually...
People thought it was real.
People thought it was real a long time ago.
Yeah.
And someone actually saw one, right? They saw a giant squid, and they were like, what the heck is that? So they wrote a story about
the Kraken.
The Kraken.
They called it I'm pretty sure it's also, some people can say the Kraken. That's another way of saying it. That's stupid. It's the Kraken.
Yeah, I don't know.
Noobs.
But yeah, so anyway, continue.
Yeah, so it is a Scandinavian myth, the Kraken. So, but I like how Krakens exist, and then you have Jormungandr, which is basically the size of the world. So the Kraken is nothing compared to Jormungandr. But, yeah, so basically Krakens are Scandinavian, and, but D&D Krakens are based off of H.P. Lovecraft. And what he's like, they say he's the father of horror. Call of Cthulhu was like the first horror book, generally. So he's like the guy that started. Yeah, the horror mind. He was very mentally unstable and really, in real life, he was very odd.
Like, he was not a good person.
He was not a good person. But yeah. But so basically, what his thing is all about the unknown. And Krakens are very mysterious creatures in D&D. They're all about like mutations and like very weird, strange shapes that are horrifying for us to visually see. So that kind of gives inspiration to the Krakens of D&D. So you're going to see all sorts of misshapen cultists, misshapen Krakens, and like how like it affects, like, the slaves are psychologically like just altered and just messed up forever, which is a big theme in H.P. Lovecraft, is the fear of the unknown and the like alien gods, which the Krakens are like alien compared to the normal gods. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
All right, the only other fun fact I have is they can use spells and magic items, and I'm not talking anything, like they can use anything.
So you're telling me a Kraken just pick up a wand and go pew pew?
Yep, they can throw fireballs, they can do cloud kills, they can just teleport around. They can do all of that. Fully capable.
Wait, are they like sorcerers, or do they need magic items?
They don't need them. They can just straight up do magic. They also can use magic items.
That's scary, but how does a Kraken pick up a wand?
Well, I mean, Octopus could just pick it up.
Imagine the Kraken, all of its arms has a wand of the wand of lightning, and just a secondary thing, just like lightning bolts just raining in the water. Yeah, pretty cool.
No, but I mean, really, like, it's not even that uncommon. Like, the lore is very explicit about them using magic.
Yeah,
funny.
Yeah. So that's scary, very scary. I'm very surprised why ancient golden reds are stronger than Krakens by 1 CR.
They are?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's going to be our next episode then. That's right.
Another. Yeah.
We're not going to skip them. If you haven't noticed by now, we kind of go up by
CR.
1 or somewhere near 1 every episode. Mm-hmm. And then once we get to the top, we're going to reset. That'll be season 1. All right. Fun facts. You have any more?
No, I am done.
All right. Extra ideas.
Yeah,
What can you use a Kraken for in your game? What are some inspiration? So I got one.
Kind of set.
You don't have any?
No, I do. I have one.
Don't waste their time thinking about it now.
I have one.
Yeah, but it's already been set.
No. One hasn't, the rest have.
Okay. You want to just say your one?
The one is for its lair, instead of some stupid trench or cave, make it like Atlantis. Or like a city where there's a whole civilization of underwater merfolk slaves.
That's cool.
Yeah, and then you have to like survive the city, and you're basically in the city, but the leader of the city is a Kraken. He just chills.
I don't know how you'd survive that city, but yeah.
Who knows? The Kraken has this goal, and if you're not messing with them in a city, you're like in an underwater city, and the leader's a Kraken. He's just chilling in a city.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Nice.
Or have him as a guardian to a legendary magic item that he would definitely use on you.
Nice.
You think I wouldn't use
I don't know
this?
why he's guarding it. Yes, yeah. He just uses it.
Yeah, he's like, you think I won't use this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, nice. One of my ideas is just you can use, there's young Kraken stat blocks, quote unquote young, that you can use for lower levels if you want there to be a Kraken fight in your campaign that isn't like ridiculously difficult. So there's that. This is one, and this is something that's just super fun sounding to me, so I'm going to share it. But so, if the party loses to a Kraken, or just as a campaign starter, imagine this. So the party wakes up on an underground beach, surrounded by flopping fish all around. And so they wake up, they like puke out water, and they're like, what the heck is going on? There's fish everywhere around them. And then all of a sudden, these weird aquatic humanoids run up and just start grabbing the fish around them and eating it like they're starving. and like grabbing fish, and you're just like, oh my god.
Oh, it's the feeding of the. Oh god,
and-
that is messed up. That's so good
And
though.
these people are like, oh god, what the heck? And then a man or a woman, like a disheveled person, comes up, and that isn't all weird. And they approach the confused party, and they're like, "Come now," he says. "Come now. Let's get you some clothes. There's work to be done." Yeah, and that's the beginning. And so I'm picturing like there's this whole slave system that's run by slaves, but in the end supported by the Kraken, so that's where the food comes from. And like I'm just imagining the party like having to maneuver this kind of social structure of the slaves, and then of course you'll probably want something to actually happen, so that slaves their digging might actually find something, like they'll find the portal. And then so now your players have to like figure out what to do in that context.
We didn't find anything at all. We totally did not find the portal to your long lost god that will definitely end the world if you find it. Look. I mean, I know there's some.
Yeah. Or they try to use the portal to escape, or there's all sorts of things.
Which is very bad. They're like, we escape. Oh crap! Just like God is just like finally.
Yeah.
Slaps.
So it could be fun, and it could especially be fun if your party has kind of reached very high level, but you don't want to end the campaign. You can have them lose to a Kraken. If they lose, don't force it. And then they wake up on this underground beach with like out any of their stuff. And so they're just like these very capable people, but they don't have any of their weapons, any of their spell books, any of that stuff. And so it kind of, although they are high CR, they kind of get dropped down, so it kind of keeps the campaign going, which could be fun.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's one big idea. Another one, I already said. I already said that one. Okay, you don't know what I'm reading. Okay, so this one's big. So definitely add Kraken-related world building to coastal towns. So that's like offerings, rituals, sacrifices, stuff that's like keeping the town safe, blah, blah, blah. And this could definitely be, if you want there to be a Kraken fight sometime in your campaign later on, this is a good way to kind of foreshadow that. You know what I mean? So have like, maybe someone like the curses of the town is just like, and what I mean by curse is like the F-bombs are like, oh, son of a Kraken, stuff like that. And so it's just kind of like putting the idea of a Kraken in the world.
Oh, that's
what I mean?
That's cool, yeah.
So there's that. One of them is inspired by octopi of real life. Just like if you were fighting a Kraken in its lair, I think it'd be funny just to have the Kraken like squeeze through a hole it looks way too big for. Because octopi apparently can squeeze through like the hole the size of a quarter or something.
Size of a dime.
Size of a dime. So what would that be for the Kraken equivalent? You know what I mean? That might be kind of awesome.
That's a doorway. I'm just kidding.
No. But like imagine there's like, like a semi-large like tunnel in the rock.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's no way it's in there. And then all of a sudden, like, a tentacle comes out, and it's like, what the heck?
Imagine you flee it, you think, oh, we survived. Oh, God.
It just goes through a crack.
Yeah. What up?
Yeah, so that could be cool. All right, this is my last one. And so this is kind of around a cult-type campaign or subplot. And so, obviously, you have the Kraken cults that we were talking about. And so this is kind of one of the awesome things I think you can do with the Kraken cult. And this also foreshadows the big Kraken boss. So, have a Kraken cultist get taken over by a Kraken mentally, psychically, and talk to the party. And so this is kind of what happens.
That's actually the ability of the Kraken priest.
I know.
The Kraken can talk through a cultist.
Oh, yeah. So definitely do that. So have like, so the description might sound like, her eyes glaze white. Then a gurgling voice protrudes from the base of their throat.
There was a good one. Have one of the Kraken forms. So if you haven't played the game Skyrim, I highly advise you do that. It's a great game. But I feel like a lot.
If you haven't played the game Skyrim,
I feel like everyone has who plays D&D. But yeah, so basically in one of the DLCs, there's this guy named Horaeus Mora. And he's basically this eyeball that appears, and he has like tentacles, and he talks like a gurgle, like you, and he talks through people and that stuff. Have a Kraken be like he reached godhood. A Kraken, a very powerful Kraken, reached like a god, like demi-godhood.
What would be the benefit of that?
It would be a better way to take over the seas. He's powerful enough to.
Well, I guess what would be the benefit of doing that in your campaign? You know what I'm saying? Like, what's the point?
You have very cool, like super cool encounters. Like not the Kraken is like not a physical form anymore. He's like an eyeball appears like on like in the air and like tentacles, and then he looks at you, or like you're in the or you're in like the Kraken's demi plane, and like it's all ink and gross.
Oh, I see.
Cool Krakeny, H.P. Lovecraft type of stuff. Have like
Lovecraftian.
Yeah,
I think
like
the word you try to
spawn,
use
yeah.
sometimes. Yeah, Lovecraftian. Yeah, that's cool. All right. Well, do you have any more extra ideas?
Nope, I do not.